Here in the middle of November, we don't have just a whole lot of plants that are very showy or providing a lot of color in the garden, but I wanted to just take a little bit of time and talk about some plants that have some interest and a little bit of color this time of year. And the first one is this plant right here, and this is the gold dust plant, or a cuba, and it's a woody shrub. It's a broadleaf evergreen. So it's going to have color throughout the year, winter, spring, summer, fall, all through the year. And the color comes from these wide, thick, leathery leaves. And it almost looks like somebody's just spilled a bunch of gold paint on the leaves. So it makes an interesting effect. Now the cubas like to be placed in the shade, and they also perform their best if they're kind of in a protected area out of the wind. So they make a really good foundation shrub up against your house. And once these plants are established, they're also very drought tolerant. Another shrub I want to show you is this one right here. This is a former Oklahoma proven plant. This is the oak leaf hydrangea. And in the early part of the summer, we had the really long panicles of white hydrangea flowers. We got a little bit of fall color from the foliage, some kind of red and purples. But once all these leaves fall, you can really appreciate the form or just the structure of the branches in the garden. It, I think, makes a nice silhouette in the shaded part of our garden. And you also can appreciate the bark of the plant. It has exfoliating bark or peeling bark, and you get a little bit of a rusty orange color. Another woody plant with showy bark is this tree right back here, and this is our river birch, and it has a very pronounced exfoliating bark. It's very papery, and in the winter time of the year, it's a lot more noticeable. Now this is a cultivar called Heritage, and it's just a selection of our native river birch, native to the eastern part of Oklahoma. And as the name implies, river birch, it's going to like more of a moist area. So when you're looking for a place to put this on your property, you want to put it in kind of a low area, maybe a swale or something like that, as opposed to a berm or a hill. Right over here, we have a little plant that's got quite a bit of color this time of the year. This is a little variegated oat grass, and it's a plant that we like quite a bit here at our gardens. You can see it's only about 6 to 8 inches tall, and it's very heavily variegated. About 2/3 of the leaf blades are white, so it really shows up at this time of the year when there are lots of brown leaves around. One of our ambassadors gave us this plant about 11 years ago, and we really enjoyed it. And it's more of a cool season plant. It will look its best in the fall and the spring. In the summertime, it goes dormant, but still well worth having in our garden. Another variegated plant in the shaded part of our garden is little variegated Japanese boxwood. And you can see it's got a lot of white in its leaves as well. This plant is another broadleaf evergreen, so it's going to give you color year-round. So it'll look nice in the warmer part of the year also. It's a little bit slow growing, and that's because of the variegation. It doesn't have as much chlorophyll in the leaves, so it doesn't have as much ability to photosynthesize and feed itself. So it's going to be a little bit slower growing. Well, now that we've had some frosts and a few freezes around the state, you may be thinking, well, it's time to go out in the garden and clean up all those perennials. You may think you want to just cut all the old stems off the perennials, but we encourage you to leave those through the winter. And the reason is these stems of the plants will kind of serve as little nets or barriers, and they trap the leaves and pine needles, and they help insulate the live part of the plant, the below ground roots, rhizomes, and crowns of these plants. They also give a little bit of interest in that there's some of the seed heads left over from the flowers in the growing season are still around They help feed the wildlife somewhat and provide just a little bit of stuff to look at when it's real cold outside. Other perennials that have a different type of growth habit, that maybe aren't branching plants, that have kind of a rosette or a mounding type of growth, like the little coral bells here, or heuchera, have a different method of protecting themselves in the winter. These leaves, as they freeze and some of them die, they just kind of collapse and insulate the plant in that way to keep it a little bit warmer during the winter time. Now, there are a few plants that we think need a little extra protection, and one of those is the Mexican bush sage, like we have right here. And this plant is kind of on the edge of its hardiness zone here in Stillwater. It's a nice perennial plant with wonderful purple and white inflorescences during the year. So we're going to give it a little extra protection with some pine needles. And I'm just going to kind of work these around the base of the plant here. You could also use a mulch of wood chips or some kind of bark mulch or something like that. You wouldn't want to use something like soil or compost or sawdust, because those are going to be a little too thick and they're going to hold in too much moisture, and you may get some rotting problems over the year. You could also, I think, in the northern part of the state, it would be a good idea to mulch some of the crepe myrtles and any other plants that you do the research on and you find out that they're kind of on the edge of their hardiness zone. Over the last 3 winters, we've had kind of mild temperatures, so we haven't had to worry about it so much, but you don't know what this winter may bring. So take care of those sensitive plants and leave the tops on your perennials this year.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.